UFC Fight Night, or I guess you could say morning, Singapore Holloway versus the Korean Zombie is coming up this weekend. And guys, today I'm going to be breaking down and predicting every single fight on the card. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. And like I just said, welcome back to another full card breakdown and prediction video, this time for UFC Singapore. Timestamps are there if you'd like to skip to a particular fight, guys. I'd appreciate you watching whatever part you'd like to. Let's get started. Starting off with the first fight, we have Seung Choi taking on Jarno Errens. Now, Seung Choi, he's been in the UFC for a very long time. He's a very, very nice, all-round fighter. He's, nothing really stands out about him, but he's just, one of those, good fighters that are unranked in the featherweight division. Coming into the UFC, he's been on a nice win streak for a little while, or not like a win streak, but he's had some nice wins here and there. But, of course, as of recent, he has been really lacking. Unfortunately, he suffered 3 really, really tough losses. And in my opinion, with the Josh Clubble fight, I thought that he just flat-out lost this fight. It's, he's been lacking a little bit, but he is better than his 10-6 record, I do believe. He's taking on Jarno Errens, who, coming to the UFC, a lot of people were really high on this guy. A lot of people, thought he was going to be a very, very good, contender coming to the UFC. But coming to the UFC, he did lose his first fight against William Gomez. This guy is a pretty, while I said Seung Choi is a very nice all-around fighter, Jarno Errens is primarily a pressure striker, which I can very well see getting the better of Seung Choi in this fight. I don't mind Jarno Errens' chances, because especially since Seung Choi, it's tough, because we haven't seen the UFC experience from Jarno Errens, and he's already had a little bit of a spotty record coming to the UFC. That's why it's a little bit tough to pick. Seung Choi is, I don't like the momentum that he's on, though. He's had 3 pretty rough losses, and I don't mean any disrespect to his opponents, but, these aren't, besides Alex Caceres maybe, these guys aren't really guys that, the losses aged too well. You know what I mean? He's not looking like he was looking when he first came into the UFC. I like Jarno Errens. He's probably a little bit more hungry. He's probably getting better. He'll probably really want to make his stand in the UFC once he first lands here. And, because, of course, he got into the UFC first, lost his first fight. He's probably going to be training, insanely hard. It's not to say Seung Choi isn't training hard, but I feel like Errens' power could get to him. The pressure and the power could do very well. But what Seung Choi does have is that all-round game. He can explore the takedowns in this fight. If he does, I see a path to victory, but I am going to go with Jarno Errens to get the win here. I'm going to go with probably a TKO. I like the way he moves forward. I think he'll be able to put the pressure on Seung Choi, and he's going to be my prediction. Moving on to the next fight, we have 2 really high prospects that I'm excited to watch. We have Yusaku Kinoshita taking on Billy Goff. So, Kinoshita, we've seen him come into the UFC off the Contenders series, and he looked very good in that performance, but then coming into the UFC, he was just knocked out by Adam Fugit just 6 months ago. I was really high on this guy, and I'm not ready to jump off the train just yet. He's taken on Billy Goff, who has had a very, very solid win streak as of late. He just got onto the Contender Series. He got a very, very nice win there, although somebody could look at it and say, okay, he had a little bit of trouble in that fight, but the way I'm looking at it is he went through adversity in this fight, and he really showed that he could hang, if something happens to go wrong coming into this next fight. So, in my opinion, this is going to be more of, while both guys are, they've shown okay, they've shown to be okay in different scenarios in the fight, but I feel like this is going to be ultimately a grappler versus striker matchup, because you have Kinoshita, who is a clearly the better striker, and you have Billy Goff, who is clearly the better grappler. We have seen Kinoshita taken down. That seems to be a weak point in his game. That's why I'm going to be picking Billy Goff. His cardio is very nice. His takedowns are very nice. And I think he's going to be able to get to Kinoshita. And I think he's going to be able to control him and get a very nice decision win. That being said, though, we have seen Billy Goff have a little bit of a rough point on the feet. And Kinoshita does have some very, very slick striking. That worries me a little bit, but I do really like Billy Goff in this matchup to get the win. Moving on to the next bout, we have Toshiomi Kazama versus Garrett Armfield. Now, Kazama versus Armfield. This is going to be another one like I was talking about. This is probably going to be a striker versus grappler matchup. We have Kazama, who is a very, very nice grappler, and Armfield, who is a very, very good striker. It's really tough to pick one of these fights because you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, and especially with the lack of UFC experience, both of them coming into the UFC having a really tough loss. Although I will say, you know what? Nakamura is not a bad fighter to lose to either, but I really don't think losing to David Onama is really a bad thing either. It's tough to say, man, because when you have these fights and you have these guys who haven't necessarily been in the UFC yet, excuse me, I just accidentally spit on my screen there. Hopefully the camera didn't pick it up. You don't really know what's going to happen when these two clash. I'm kind of looking this at almost a 50-50 fight, to be honest with you. And we haven't seen nearly enough from either of these guys. we've seen not weaknesses in their game, but we haven't seen like a nice, really all-round skill set. We don't know exactly how they're going to hang in the division yet. So that's why it's really tough to play. It's really tough to play out. To be honest with you, I'm not really high on either guy, but if I had to pick, I think it's more 50-50. But I'm going to go with Armfield, but I'm not confident in this pick whatsoever, guys. Moving on to the next fight, we have Liang taking on JJ Aldrich. Now, Liang coming to the UFC, she came into the UFC with a very good record, but of course, if you take a look at any of those opponents, it is a very, very padded record that she has, to be honest. And when she came into the UFC, reality struck because she got absolutely destroyed, and she got absolutely destroyed by the competition in the UFC that's not even that great. JJ Aldrich, on the other hand, she's another big favorite, which is very interesting because she's coming off of 2 really tough losses because she's been an okay fighter being the key word. Like, there's nothing like a really stands about her. She comes forward, she has some pressure with some sloppy striking, you know what I mean? I'm shocked that she beat Jillian Robertson, but then again, maybe I was hyping up Jillian Robertson a little too much. Vanessa Demopoulos, I'm shocked that she beat too, and Courtney Casey, that was even a split decision. Like, that's the story of JJ Aldrich, and after that, she had a horrible loss to Erin Blanchfield, which no shock there, and then to Ariana Lipsky, who I'm also not even high on. I think these are two, and I mean absolutely no disrespect towards the division, but I think these are two very poor fighters going at it, and I'm going to lean towards JJ Aldrich because she is clearly not nearly as poor as Liang. Liang offers absolutely nothing. I'd be shocked if JJ Aldrich lost this fight, but then again, I wouldn't even be that shocked because it's WMA. Anything can happen in this division. You know, I do not think Aldrich should be a minus 670 favorite. I think that is absolutely insane. But Aldrich should be winning this fight. She should come forward, she should punch, and probably get a nice decision win. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of Kenan Song taking on Rolando Bedoya. Now, this is a very interesting fight. I enjoy watching Kenan Song fight. So, Kenan Song into the UFC, he's had a very spotty record. He loses to fighters that are, typically pretty good, and then he wins against fighters that are a little bit subpar, you know what I mean? He's coming off from that loss to Ian Gary, in which he actually almost beat Ian Gary, and that's aging extremely well. He almost finished Ian Gary in that fight. He looked really good. Ronaldo Bedoya, on the other hand, coming into the UFC, he first got his fight against Chaos Williams, and then unfortunately depending how you look at it, I like watching Ronaldo Bedoya, but I like Chaos Williams too. I don't know why I said unfortunately. Got a split decision loss, but he showcased a very good performance. I wouldn't say it was a great performance, but he definitely showed that he belongs in the UFC. I really like Ronaldo Bedoya. When these two come in, it's going to be tough to say because Bedoya, he's, I don't know, I worry about him because he is hittable, and Kenan Song does have really nice power behind his shots. But Bedoya did show a really good chin in a fight with Chaos Williams, who Chaos Williams possesses quite a bit of power in his hands. You know what I mean? Kenan Song's getting older. He's very spotty. And Ronaldo Bedoya, I'm still not ready to jump off the train because I did like the way he fought Chaos Williams. That was a very close fight. I gotta go with Bedoya. I'm not super confident saying that because when Kenan Song does have really good power in his hands, but I feel like Bedoya will be able to get over that, and I feel like he'll be able to outpace him to a decent decision win. Moving on to the next fight, guys. This is going to be a really good one, and I apologize in advance about the name pronunciation. We have Chidi Njokuani taking on Michael, and I don't think it's Michael. That's the problem. I'm remembering it being someone else. Oleksiejczuk, and again, I mean absolutely no disrespect when I say that. These two are incredible fighters. I'm very high on both of them. I really like watching Chidi fight. So, Chidi Njokuani, a lot of people were very high on, myself included. Came into the Contender Series, looked great, got 2 very nice wins after that, and both of these wins aged very well, especially with Marc-Andre Barriol. I think he's a great fighter, but then, unfortunately, he had that really rough loss to Gregory Rodriguez, which I didn't mind his outing in there, but then, of course, he had that very close fight against Albert Duraev. I still, with these 2 losses, I'm very high on Chidi. I don't think he looked bad in those fights. Well, I mean, as you know what I mean. He lost the fights, especially to Gregory Rodriguez, but I'm still high on this guy. You know what I mean? He's taking on Michael Oleksiejczuk, who has a 18-6 record. He, is been in the UFC for a little while now, and you kind of know what you're getting with him. This guy's a very good striker, but unfortunately, he doesn't always get the job done. We see him fade in fights. We've seen him, he's just had very spotty performances. You know what I mean? Coming in, here's the thing. He's had 2 losses, to Caio Borralho and then to Dustin Jacoby. Both of these losses age extremely well, but if you take a look at his recent wins, those have also not aged extremely well against Cody Brundage and Sam Alvey. But if you want to go back to the Gamestov fight, that's a decent win there. But in this last year that he's had, I don't know, man. I don't like this guy, but the problem is he has very nice power in his hands. He has pretty slick striking. He looks good, and he has every possibility of winning this fight, especially in Chidi, who we've seen cracked before. I do like Chidi in this matchup, though. I do like Chidi because I do like the activity that he brings. I like the power that comes in his striking. I like the slickness that he has in the striking department. I feel like this will be a stand-up fight. While Chidi, at some points, we have seen him a little bit on the back foot a little bit. I feel like he could catch Michael. I really feel like he could catch Michael in this fight. I don't know. It's like one of those like a little bit gut feelings that I have for Chidi in this fight. Can he lose this fight? Absolutely. But I am not ready with these 2 losses to hop off the Chidi train yet. I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to get a very nice win. And I think he's going to look very good, and people are probably going to be back on the Chidi Noraguchi train after this. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of Waldo Cortes Acosta, and he's taking on Lukasz Brzeski. Now, guys, this fight, to be honest with you, I don't have too much to say about it. This is why there's a little bit of a tricky card, because I just think Acosta's better. I just do. Coming to the UFC, like, he's looked very good, but I'm pretty shocked, to be honest with you, that he lost to Marcos Rogério de Lima. I think that fighter is like, while the MMA community doesn't necessarily overrate Marcos Rogério de Lima, I'm not high on him, you know? I'm shocked that he lost that fight. He's taking on Lukasz Brzeski, who, you know, before the UFC, people thought that, like, you know, he might be an okay fighter. He got assigned, and then, unfortunately, lost to Martin Bedoya and lost to Carl Williams. He did not look good. I believe that this is one of the lower talented fighters in the heavyweight division, while Waldo Acosta does have, like, I don't believe Waldo Acosta is going to come in and, like, be a contender at heavyweight or anything, but I think Waldo Cortes Acosta is one of those gatekeeper type fighters. He's going to be one of those fighters, and I just think no matter where this fight ends up, he's just going to be better than Brzeski. I just believe that, like, Brzeski is, like, you know, he's shown technique a little bit in his fights, right? He has some very nice kicks. He put some combinations together, you know what I mean? But Waldo Acosta, he's just a better built fighter. He'll be more active. He's in his prime, while Brzeski is also in his prime too. I've just liked what I've seen from him so far. I just think no matter where the fight goes, no matter what happens, I think Waldo Cortes Acosta is going to be better. He's going to be my pick, a very confident pick in that. Moving on to the next fight, we have Junior Tafa taking on Parker Porter. Now, the fun thing about this fight is Parker Porter took on Junior Tafa's brother and actually lost to him. And I believe it's right. Yeah, 2 fights ago, Justin Tafa ended up knocking him out. Now, if depending on how you want to look at this fight, before we get into the records, depending on how you want to look at this fight, Junior Tafa is a lot better than his brother and Justin Tafa. They're kind of like the same style fighter, but Junior Tafa is the superior striker. Here's the problem, though. Parker Porter, he's 38 years old, very old for the heavyweight division. He's surprisingly fast, surprisingly can get some takedowns, you know what I mean? You wouldn't expect it coming from a guy of his build, you know what I mean? So he's always had like a spotty record in the UFC. After that, like after his 2 wins here, he had 2 rough losses to both Justin Tafa and Jailton Almeida, which, in my opinion, nothing to go crazy about. Like those are both very, very good fighters, in my opinion. Then I was shocked to see that he beat Braxton Smith. I bet on Braxton Smith. I was so sure about that fight, like, but besides, like, of course, like, the anything can happen in heavyweight type thing, but I thought Braxton Smith would just clean up Parker Porter. So he's coming off of a very, very good win. His chin looked good. His power looked good. He looked vicious in this fight. So my point in saying that is he's coming off of some nice momentum, okay? Although I'm still not high on him. Junior Tafa, coming off of a little bit of a rough loss, okay? He's looked very, very good, but then he fought Mohammed Usman. And I also, to be honest with you, I picked both their fights last wrong. I thought Junior Tafa was going to clean up Mohammed Usman. I thought he was going to clock him and knock him out. So I was wrong in both of these picks. I hope I'm not wrong again. I like Junior Tafa. I think the same thing's going to happen that happened with his brother. Junior Tafa is going to be the superior striker. He's going to sit there. He's going to piece him up and knock out Parker Porter. However, Parker Porter looked very good in his last fight. The pick's going to be Tafa, okay? He's better than his brother, and he's going to do the same thing that his brother did. Okay? That's what I believe. Something's telling me Parker Porter could get it done, though. I'm picking Tafa. That is what should happen, man. That's what should happen. Junior Tafa should win this fight against Parker Porter. You know? 38 years old, 26. Junior's getting better. Man, I gotta go with Junior. It's just like something's telling me. Like I said, I'm gonna stop talking about it. Junior Tafa is gonna be my pick. Moving on to the next fight, we have Erin Blanchfield taking on Talia Santos. Now, this is a very, very sneaky, underrated fight because Erin Blanchfield is one of the flyweight division fighters who is very fun to watch because, like Wei Li Zhang, she brings destruction in her path. I love to watch her. Like, she is a very, very good wrestler with amazing ground and pound, and every single time we see her strike now, her striking is improving. She is becoming a very, very good all-round fighter. I'm not even going to lie to you, like, off topic, I think she would beat both Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko if they fought right now. She has looked nothing but spectacular coming into the UFC, and she's coming off of the absolute murder of Jessica Andrade. She's been looking real good, man. But Talia Santos is a very underrated fighter. She is very technical. She's very good in the division, and people are overlooking her because of the hype for Erin Blanchfield right now. Coming into the UFC, she looked very good. Not necessarily stomping everybody in her path, but she looked very good in all these fights, and she also looked good against Valentina Shevchenko, and this is before we saw Valentina Shevchenko kind of lose a step. The majority of the world thinks that she won this fight. I actually believe that Valentina Shevchenko won this fight. However, it was a very, very close fight. Very, very close fight. Here's the thing, because it's tough. Like, I'm going to stay away from this fight, of course, like when taking a look at betting, especially in the flyweight division, right? Talia Santos can absolutely win this fight. You could make an argument that she's better on the feet. I don't know what's going to happen if these two clash, but Erin Blanchfield, I cannot not pick her with the destruction that she has brought through in this division so far. She has looked dominant, she's looked fantastic, and she's looking better every single time we see her. I'm not overly confident that she's going to win this fight, but I cannot go against her right now. I'm picking Erin Blanchfield. I think she's going to do what she's been doing. I think she's going to get a takedown. I think she's going to smother Talia, and I think she is going to get a ground and pound domination in this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Rinya Nakamura taking on Fernie Garcia. Now, a lot of people are really high on Nakamura. Not going to lie, guys. I'm not going to lie, myself included. I think this guy has the potential to be the real deal. While I'm not convinced yet that he can hang with the best of the bantamweights, I think the potential is absolutely there. This dude has steamrolled everybody in his path so far, especially in his first fight in the UFC. This guy has great striking, and he has great ground game. This guy can pretty much fight everywhere, okay? He's taken on Fernie Garcia, who, this is why spoiler, I'm going to pick Nakamura, who is a good striker, but we have seen a little bit of a weakness in the ground game, especially coming to the UFC. So, this guy has been putting in quite a bit of work in LFA. He's looked very good, but then coming into the UFC after the Contenders Series, he unfortunately had two pretty rough losses. He didn't necessarily look really good in those losses, you know what I mean? So, it's tough because I think Fernie is better than his two losses here because in LFA, he has put on quite good fights. He has had like decent performances. He's a very good striker. His forward pressure is very nice. But because like, even if, let's say like Fernie Garcia, I think he's being underrated with the striking department, by the way. Rinya Nakamura is a very good fighter. He possesses that power. He is very technical. He is a very, very good striker, and he's very confident in himself. Fernie can absolutely catch him. Fernie can absolutely like have some scenarios where he outstrikes Rinya, but Rinya has that option for the ground game, and he is just so good everywhere, and we've seen that hole in Garcia's game. If Rinya happens to get in trouble on the feet, I feel like he could just go for the takedown and control him there. That's why I'm going to pick Rinya Nakamura. I don't think he should be a 7-15 favorite, but you can't not go with him, man. He has been looking nothing but fantastic as of late. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of Giga Chikadze. Okay, so he's taking on Alex Caceres. Now, Giga Chikadze, okay, so like when he came to the UFC, everybody was so high on this guy, myself included. I thought this dude would be a title contender. He looked so good. He's had very nice, amazing, dominant wins, even against Edson Barboza. And I understand Edson Barboza's past his prime, but man, he looked good in that fight. But then, Calvin Kattar destroyed this guy. I did not expect that. I thought Giga Chikadze would win this fight. I didn't think like he was going to destroy Calvin Kattar like he did his other opponents, but I thought Giga was going to win. I thought he was just going to completely out-technique him, but Calvin Kattar just out-gridded him completely, and he looked fantastic in that fight. It's tough to say because it's the first time we've seen Giga Chikadze look that way, and we've seen him fight a guy who was really like going to bite down on his mouthpiece and make the fight dirty like Calvin Kattar did. It's tough to say because like Alex Caceres isn't going to do that, and Giga Chikadze was one of those guys who's very confident in himself. How's he going to come back after this loss? Because this is a really, really bad loss on him. That's why I am like, I don't know. I'm not too sure, okay? It's tough. And plus, he's coming back off of a long layoff. He's 35 years old now. I'm not confident in how this guy's going to look. He's taken on Alex Caceres, who has had an absolutely amazing career resurgence. Okay, he's one of those guys who I'm a big fan of now because I really respect what this guy's done. He's come back and he's had some very nice wins with only one hiccup there against Sadiq Youssef, and even then, he didn't look terrible in that fight. You know what I mean? But then he got a very, very nice win over Julian Erosa, a very nice KO, and then he had a rough go against Daniel Pineda. I was like, oh man, Alex Caceres, I believe he was my lock of the week that week against Daniel Pineda. Regardless, I was very confident in him, and I was very worried in that fight. Alex Caceres did not look good in this fight, in a guy who he should have beat against Daniel Pineda. So he was also in very, very big trouble at the end of that fight. So both guys are coming off of, like, to be honest with you, like, I'm not looking at Alex Caceres like he's coming off of, like, some nice momentum in a 2-win streak. This fight's really tough to pick. Giga Chikadze is absolutely the better fighter. I believe that. He's the better striker. Well, Alex Caceres might have the biggest advantage on the ground. Giga Chikadze should win this fight. Matching these two up on paper, Giga Chikadze should be able to do whatever he wants. He should be able to stay distance and be able, to, again, to do whatever he wants. But Alex Caceres has a way of winning. He just has a way, and he showed it in his career. He's been getting better every single time we see him, aside from this last performance. Maybe it was an off night. People have that. This is a really tough fight to pick, but I'm going to reluctantly pick Giga Chikadze in this fight. But I would not be shocked at all if Alex Caceres ended up getting it done. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Anthony Smith taking on Ryan Spann. This is a rematch, okay? This is a very, very, like, it's a weird rematch to do in the division, but it kind of at the same time makes sense. So, Anthony Smith, it's tough. Like, both fighters, man, are very inconsistent. They're very inconsistent. That's why it's a really, really tough fight to pick. But Anthony Smith, at 35 years old, is well past his prime now. He's went on like a little bit of a nice win streak since coming to the division, right? But then I don't even know if, I don't remember who I thought would win this fight. But I don't know. Like, that win just rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I feel like Ryan Spann's better than that performance that he had. But then after that Ryan Spann win, okay, he's had really, really rough losses against Magomed Ankalaev and then against Johnny Walker. He looked very poor in this fight. Very, very poor. And I'm not saying, like, Johnny Walker just didn't look great himself, but Anthony Smith, it is clear, especially in this last fight, that he's past his prime. I wholeheartedly believe Anthony Smith should retire. I do believe that. You're fighting my family, man. You're taking my family. But it was just a weird performance. Anthony Smith was in a weird headspace. I don't know what to think about Anthony Smith. Ryan Spann, though, he's had also a very inconsistent run in the UFC. Just take a look at his last 5. Like, depending, like, some of those wins look good. Some of those wins or losses, like, have aged well. You know, like, it's tough to say with this fight. I expected Krylov to beat him. It's exactly the way that it went. But even before that, like, of course, Dominic Reyes is a shell of his former self. Ian Kitolaba, anything can happen with that guy. Who knows? Anthony Smith, of course, I think he's better than that performance. But then Misha Serkinov, and, like, depending on how you want to look at that, like, is Misha Serkinov even somebody that you really want to take into consideration? Like, Ryan Spann beats people and like, I don't know, like, do you guys understand what I'm saying here? Like, both guys are incredibly inconsistent. Ryan Spann looks good against fighters that aren't that great, but then he looks very poor against people who clearly out-technique him. But one of those things you can never count out is Ryan Spann has that power in his hands that he can put anybody out. I think Ryan Spann is going to beat Anthony Smith. I think it's going to be one of those scenarios like the win over Dominic Reyes, where you have a guy who is clearly past his prime. Anthony Smith looks slow. Anthony Smith is not accepting the losses that he has, and that's very important to note, by the way. Anthony Smith, every time he loses, is like, well, on paper, I should have beat this guy. You know, it's become a meme now. You know, it's become a meme. Anthony Smith is not getting better from his losses. He's been the same fighter. He's getting older. He's getting slower. Ryan Spann, while coming off of a loss, he will always carry that power. He's 32 years old. He's still hungry. I think he's going to get revenge on Anthony Smith. I think he's going to get a very nice win here. And I think, has he been more active too? I feel like he has been. 4 months ago, 9 months ago, he's been good. But Anthony Smith, like, he's been, like, decently active, I guess. Like, but one fight in a year. It's tough, man. This is a really tough fight to pick. But I don't think Ryan Spann will KO him. And that's why Anthony Smith might win. It's a very tough fight to pick. I'm definitely staying away from this one in the betting. But I'm giving Ryan Spann for this pick. Moving on to the main event, we have Max Holloway taking on Chan Sung Jung. And it's unfortunate this is the main event, guys, because this is an easy fight to predict. You know, minus 800 speaks for itself, but I'll go through it very quickly. So Max Holloway, he's surprisingly has 2 losses in his last 5. Of course, to Alexander Volkanovski in a split decision where most people thought he won that fight. I thought Alexander Volkanovski won this fight clearly 3-2. I don't know what everyone's talking about, but then, of course, he's just looked great. He had that domination over Calvin Kattar. He had the very good performance against Yair Rodriguez. Lost Alexander Volkanovski again in a fight where he got completely outclassed, but then he looked pretty good against Arnold Allen. So Max Holloway clearly still has it at 31 years of age. Chan Sung Jung, though, very spotty as of recent. He's had some good wins. He's had some good losses, but of course, in his most recent fight against Alexander Volkanovski, he looked slow. He's 36 years old now, and I understand, I wholeheartedly believe it's a combination of Alexander Volkanovski being the greatest fighter to ever grace the sport and Chan Sung Jung both getting older. He didn't look good in that fight. He looked like he couldn't take the damage anymore, and I really believe that Chan Sung Jung should be out of the game by now. He still can fight, but Max Holloway, in my opinion, is going to have a Calvin Kattar performance on him. He's going, and they might stop the fight. I don't know if they're going to do the same thing like they did with Volkanovski, but Max Holloway, these two are going to come in, and they're going to box. Max Holloway might have a little bit more kicks in his arsenal, but that's what's going to happen. I don't have too much else to say about this fight. Max Holloway is going to absolutely dominate him. It's going to be sad to see because I'm a huge fan of the Korean Zombie. I hope he wins this fight. I hope a miracle happens, but it's not going to happen. These two are going to come forward. They're going to box. Max Holloway is going to box his face off. That's what's going to happen in this fight. So I apologize that I don't have exactly a very good breakdown for the main event here, but that's what's going to happen, man. With that last fight with the main event, though, guys, that is going to end this full card breakdown and prediction video for today. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you watched the whole thing. Comment down below what your picks are going to be. Do you agree with me, especially on the main event? Let me know what you think down below, and thank you again for watching. I will see you in the next video, guys. Take care.